We're going to go over 10 spells that were somewhere between unremarkable to terrible in Elden Ring, but are kinda good to OP in Nightreign. Even though these spells were not changed or buffed, so how does that work exactly? Well, let's dive right away into this huge mystery and start with the list. Starting off with Magma Shot as the first entry. Now, Magma Shot is a sorcery, and it wasn't like terrible in the original game, but it was just not remarkable enough to warrant using it with all the alternatives there. In Nightreign, however, it's a spell that's just a lot more useful. First of all, it's very easy to get, so you will frequently see it. It's efficient, you can chain cast it, and it's a good mix of sustained damage and some burst, as aside from the initial hit, it also acts as a lava pool that has damage over time, which means it's also good for staggering the humanoid enemies and bosses in the game, giving you a lot of momentum. And those type of bosses are, quite prevalent, especially with the good source of runes, Evergaol spawning them frequently. And aside from that, the Magma Shot is a fire sorcery and not an incantation, meaning if you're playing as a recluse, you can in fact get all 4 types of damage for your cocktail with just the weapon in your left and right hand, your staff having then a magic plus fire spell, and your seal then having a lighting and holy spell with Magma Shot, which is another reason for why this spell is actually really good here. But what wasn't good at all was the Tibia summons in the original game. It was an absolute terrible spell there, and also due to the existence of the Rose's Axe weapon, which is a strength intelligence weapon where its Ash of War is just a better and more efficient version of this spell, giving you 0 reason to ever use this spell, and you could get that weapon pretty much right away in Liurnia. Here, however, in Nightreign, guarantees do not exist, and due to how damage calculations work, Tibia summons makes a comeback. It is actually pretty reasonable damage, and it's pretty sustainable as well due to the fact that you can spam it all over the battlefield, with it granting you 3 hits per cast. Just make sure your target doesn't move out of the place of impact, because the whiff potential is definitely there and you'll miss often. It is nothing too crazy, but when compared to the original game, it definitely deserves a spot on the list. What also absolutely belongs in this list is going to be the Shattering Crystal spell. It's essentially just a magic shotgun. You charge it, release it, and it does great damage because it's a bunch of projectiles hitting the target at once. And when playing with others, you obviously get a lot more room to charge it without the boss hitting you into the ground. Elden Ring's defense system was quite simplified in Nightreign, with it removing the defense multiplier stat, which means that the multi-hit spells like this one aren't hit as hard as in the original game, where the baseline damage of every single projectile would get a flat damage reduction. That's not the case here. Instead, the only thing you care about here is weaknesses and vulnerabilities, which will increase or decrease all of your damage at the same time with a percentage. So a lot of these multi-hit spells are just a lot better in Nightreign. Same reason why Tibia Summons is actually also on this list. For the next one on the list, we have to take a little detour. Infinity Nikki is the name. Yes, what's that, you ask? Well, first of all, thanks to them for sponsoring today's video. Infinity Nikki is an open-world multi-platform game that has its own iconic dress-up system. Unlike other open-world games, Infinity Nikki revolves around having a chill experience where you can have a more therapeutic and relaxing game experience. There are a variety of cozy sim activities and casual fun set in a bright and fantasy-filled world. And the game fixates on experiencing the beauty of the blue tears that only flood once every 20 years in breezy meadow. You can wear new limited time outfits in the Blue Tier season event. The water swing is also installed on the lake near the event area now. Now, the dress-up system is its iconic experience. It's a system revolving around exceptional clothing design that comes with a lot of customization. From the colors of your hairstyles and gowns to fully transform your characters to the characters of other games if you want, like for example Elden Ring Nightreign. The new 1.7 version also introduces 3 new stunning outfits. In other words, epic new outfits in a game that already lets you customize your character in many ways. So what are you waiting for? Check this relaxing game out using my link in the description right now. Venturing forward on the number 3 entry, we have a quite similar spell here, Crystal Torrent. Now, Shattering Crystal takes some time to charge up, and its range is not that amazing, so you have to be quite close to your target. But it has good burst, and you can amp it up nicely due to the charging component with boons and talismans that enhance charging sorceries. Crystal Torrent on the other side has a lot more range, but it's also more safe to get the damage in with it. It's more about DPS here rather than burst though, so they kind of complement each other pretty well. If you run the no FP consumption cocktail as a recluse, you can chunk a lot of HP in very quick succession with Crystal Torrent, and even without the cocktail, with say Starlight Charge or so, this is pretty much a cheap budget Comet Azure that's also easy to get, and you will see that with the defense system overhaul, it definitely does pack a punch now. In the original Elden Ring, Crystal Torrent was just completely overshadowed by Comet Azure, especially because you can just get the Cerulean Hidden Tear there and infinitely cast Comet Azure in every boss fight, but here it definitely has its spot. Number 5. Aspects of the Crucible Breath. In Elden Ring, this spell has its niche use cases, stun locking Malenia for example, but its damage is definitely not great. In Nightreign, the damage is still not that great per tick, but if you can keep it up, the damage does definitely rake up. However, it's not the damage that makes it interesting in Nightreign, but rather the spell can function very well as a support type of spell due to its range, which is very large, and every instance of damage here also staggering many different types of enemies at the same time, including some of the final bosses. So you have the potential for a great control AoE staggering spell here that over time will also just build up a lot of damage if you can maintain it. The FP to damage ratio is not bad at all as well, and each tick of damage here applies a fire siphon, giving you the possibility to refill your FP very easily as a recluse. Number 6. The first entry on the list that is not a multi-hit spell. Now Honed Bolt in Elden Ring is not that bad or anything, it's just overshadowed by a lot of other spells that do what it can do but a lot better. And even in the lightning domain, you can get Lightning Spear right away when starting a new playthrough, which is also just a better spell. In Nightreign, however, Honed Bolt drops very frequently, and the thing about this spell that's kinda unique is that its chain casting animation is very quick. So it feels like a minigun if you can keep it up. You can get a lot of these bolts in quick succession. And the thing with spells like Lightning Spear, and especially in Nightreign where enemies will redirect aggro, is that you can miss them if the enemy moves away from the spell's trajectory. However, Honed Bolt strikes from above, so it's very easy to get the damage in, and combined with its spammability and easy access makes it a very reliable spell in Nightreign. Just like number 7, Beast Claw. Now Beast Claw is absolutely terrible in Elden Ring, the cause of many spontaneous aneurysms for whoever tried it out there. For those who played the network test in 2021, however, it was pretty OP back then, but it got nerfed for the official launch, and in Elden Ring it just takes too much time to get it off, and the damage is also bad. Even in a fully min-max build catered to this spell, due to the defense system overhaul removing the flat damage reduction in Nightreign, however, it got some implicit buffs, making it have just a lot better values though, and actually makes it usable. It can hit for 500 to 600 quite easily per target, even early on, but its damage is also not even its main selling point. It's its range, which allows you to clear enemies very reliably and safely with it, but also the fact that it has this AoE component, both in the sense that it goes through targets, so you can impale a lot of targets at the same time, but also because you send out 5 of these waves, and that means you have a lot of coverage on the battlefield with this spell. So in boss fights with multiple targets or waves of mobs, you get a lot of value out of this spell, but also if your teammate is dying, for example, you can simultaneously hit the boss as well as revive your ally with this spell. And it's probably, if I have to make an estimation, the 3rd best spell on today's list. Number 8, Whirl of Flame. Pretty much a meme in the original Elden Ring. Completely useless, but here, due to the flat damage reduction removal, you now have a solid spell on your hands. It got a glow up. It is simple, just a 4-hit fire damage spell with good range and good stickiness. It's pretty easy to hit your targets with it as well. It also charges for more damage, meaning it has a lot of synergy with things like the Godfrey icon, as well as weapon passives that increase charged incantation damage. So it's a multi-hit, chargeable spell that is of the fire school, and that means you get a really solid option here for bosses that are weak to fire. Now we're going to end the video with, in my opinion, the 2 best spells out of the list. So everyone that has stick to the end of the video will get rewarded with the juicy spell recommendations. Number 9 is going to be Collapsing Stars. This is the 2nd best spell on the list, basically the runner-up in my opinion. In the original game, it has some niche uses like pulling enemies onto you, which means, for example, in specific situations where enemies are shooting at you from high spots, you can yoink them to their death, but overall nothing substantial and a pretty slow and bad spell overall there. It is also very easily outclassed by other crafty sorceries like Rock Sling and Meteorite of Astel in boss fights, but here it is a different story. It is actually good, reliable, and powerful in pretty much any fight, as it's yet again another multi-hit spell. Surprise, surprise. So it profits of the removal of flat damage reduction. Each of these purple orbs individually does good damage, and you send out a bunch of these at the same time, which all traverse to a single point, and that's usually whatever you're locked onto. And it also tracks very well at the same time. I definitely did underrate this spell at first, but after using it a few times, well, I can easily say I'm picking it up whenever I can now. Number 10 then, today's winner, Elden Stars. Arguably the worst damaging spell in Elden Ring. So many memes and the community dogpiling on the spell, and justified because it's terrible. In Nightreign, however, as the product of the defense system simplification, indication. Well, this thing just keeps on shooting off projectiles, so you know what that already means. DPS, a lot of damage, and the best thing is you can just grab some popcorn and watch, because you have to cast it once and it will stay active for some time. It's like a turret basically. And keep that in mind, because if you chain cast it, the second cast will override the first. So to preserve FP, definitely do not do that. But because it consists out of so many projectiles, it means also for the Recluse, infinite FP generation and Holy Siphons. And for the Revenant, it's a very FP efficient option, and it then comes with a lot of staggers, and it has amazing tracking too. You can also just cast it and start using your other spells at the same time, by the way, as well, because it takes, like I said, some time before it finishes. Now, I definitely skipped it a lot of times in those first few drops, thinking I would be griefing my squad if I took it. But now, definitely not anymore, especially if the boss is weak to holy damage, like the final boss. And I will show you a clip where I, in a squad of 3, just take it down pretty much with just Elden Stars, even though Holster will have that 3-man HP scaling, so that's probably an indication that the spell is actually OP here. Definitely the strongest out of today's spells. But before we go to the clip, make sure to subscribe and like, and if you want to know more about all other spells in this game, check out my Revenant and Recluse guides, because I made a tier list there with pretty much all the spells worth using, whether it's a sorcery or an incantation. Thank you for watching. Here is the destruction of the final boss with Elden Stars.